Is Zach Wilson not terrible anymore? I wish I knew. We're going to talk about it because we got picks for every single game for week 5. 4 teams on a bye week, which gives us 14 teams. What about Joe Burrow? 3-point favorites at Arizona. And then you just have as brutal a matchup as you're ever going to get on Thursday Night Football. So we can all sit back and enjoy that and be glad that we have Amazon Prime subscriptions, because otherwise, no reason anybody would pay for that nonsense. But we're going to bet it. We're going to bet them all. Well, we're not going to bet them all. We're going to talk about them all, and we're going to find our favorite spots. I'm Dave Larkin, Loughy_D from OddsShopper, LOUGHY_D on the Twitters. If you want to come say hi. Hey, guys, if you appreciate this type of even if you come here just to fade me, that's all right. But hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and let me know. Comment in the description your favorite picks for week 5. There's going to be some really good games. We're going to find the best spots. We're going to hit them, and we're going to run it all back as we do every single week. So let's get into it. Oh, and one more thing before we get to the picks, guys, feel free to skip over this. But if you are in the state, one of the great states, one of the lucky states right now of Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, New Jersey, Kentucky, or Iowa, you'll want to hear this, because a Bet365, it's the best promo in the world right now. You bet $1, you get $365. It is that simple. I threw the link in the description. It's in the pinned comment as well. You literally bet $1 and get $365 over at Bet365. Remember how I told you guys all the time, don't go and parlay every single one of these games together? I take that back if you're in one of those 6 states, because why not? Go get like 1,000 to 1 parlay. Only here. I would never recommend this otherwise. $1, throw it on it. If you win, you're rolling in money and you've got $365 coming your way. If you lose, it doesn't matter, because you got $365 coming your way. So here's what you do. If you're in Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, New Jersey, Iowa, or Kentucky, click the link. That's how you get this. That's how you get this money. $365 on $1. Sign up takes 2 minutes. Think of it this way. You're making $365 in like 2 minutes. Verify yourself, deposit $10 and bet only $1. 10% of that $10 must be 21 years or older to gamble. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's get to the picks. All right, we're kicking it off. Thursday Night Football. Oh, what a barn burner this should be. Are we excited? You've got the Commanders at home laying 5.5 against the Bears. A 6 in some spots, but for the sake of this argument, or for this video, we'll talk about 5.5. 44.5 point total. You know, guys, honestly, when I first saw this, I was like, I think Bears +6 makes the most sense. You know, because of course, public seeing that what the Commanders did last week, taking the Eagles to overtime, all of that. The Bears still being winless on the season, blowing a significant lead against the Broncos. I get all that. But honestly, the more I look at that, like sometimes when we're betting, and you guys know how we feel about this. I know many of you feel the same way. If you watch people who are experienced in betting, far more experienced than myself even, they'll tell you this all the time. You know, stats and all of that are going to take you a long way for sure. But sometimes there are just certain spots, and we're going to get to a bunch of them later in the video, that you have to consider. Like sometimes there's those intangible spots in football because there's so much parity in this sport. And what happens one week doesn't necessarily dictate what's going to happen the next week. And there's also such a small sample size in the NFL compared to like 162 baseball games, 82 basketball, hockey games, and all of that. In this spot, though, I might have to look at the actual stats because I think it makes the most sense. You know, Sam Howell's the type of guy that if he's under pressure, he's been terrible. We saw that in week 3 against Buffalo. Quite frankly, that's why, and we had a nice week last week on this very show, but I was wrong. We got the Eagles wrong. I thought they were going to get a lot more pressure on Sam Howell. Now, I knew he'd try and get the ball out early, but he had success throwing the football. They had success in the red zone, took him to overtime, and the Eagles didn't actually get much pressure. They didn't get to him all that often. How in the world are the Bears going to get there? Not to mention that they already ruled out 2 cornerbacks, a bunch of guys on defense are struggling. They're in trouble, right? The offensive line is already banged up. And then on the other side, they can get pressure on Justin Fields. He had his best game of the season last week, but they still lost. You know, the 5.5 is out there. If it was 6, 6.5, I may look elsewhere. Obviously 7. But at 5.5, I think we lay the points with the Commanders at home. And we just kind of have to lean on the fact that, hey, this is not a good Bears team in any facet of the game right now. Dealing with injuries, can't get pressure. And also the run defense is terrible as well. which is why on DraftKings right now, always shop your books. You guys know that. Get on as many books as possible. Find the best props, because even if you only win them once in a while, you're going to win more money getting the best odds and the best lines over time. Brian Robinson over 61.5 rushing yards on DraftKings. Everywhere else, it's 64.5, 65.5. If you like that spot against a bad Bears run defense, that's where I would go. Next up, we got Jaguars and Bills. So this is a London game. Jags are 5.5-point dogs, 48.5-point total. Jags stayed in London. They're playing back. How weird is this, man? They're playing back-to-back games in London. I get it. It's their home away from home. But, I mean, come on. They're back-to-back London games. They stayed there. Bills traveling there after a really big emotional win against the Miami Dolphins, who were coming off a 70-point win against the Broncos themselves. Bills throttled them. What was it, 48-20 or something? And now you look at this game. I'll be honest. This is probably a pass for me, but I'm always going to give you a pick on every spot. My lean, it's obviously or pass, would be Bills minus 5.5, because the Jags have just not looked good. They just haven't looked good. And I know they got that convincing, you could call it, win against Atlanta last week in London, but they looked terrible against Houston. You know, they couldn't muster double-digit points against Kansas City. They just haven't looked very good this season. Neither is Trevor Lawrence. The brain, the mind, the heart tell you that the Bills minus 5.5 are the play here. The only reason that I would look maybe the other way is because the Jags have been in London for 2 weeks now. They're not coming off a big emotional win, but everything makes sense to lean Bills minus 5 here. Not one of my favorite games because it's a weird one in London, back-to-back spots for the Jags, but that is where I would lean, is Bills minus 5.5. And the reason why? Neutral stadium. I don't think Jags have legitimate home field advantage here against the Bills. The reason why is because I just think the Bills are a significantly better football team right now. Giants and the Dolphins. Oh, dude. Monday night. Truly hideous disaster, both for the Giants and for myself. 10.5-point dogs, 49.5-point total. This O-line is worse than I thought. Like, hold on. I knew they were bad. You have to be blind to not know that they were terrible, even without Andrew Thomas, who's not expected to play this week either. But the fact that the Seattle Seahawks came into this game with 5 sacks, they had not generated any significant pressure all season long through the first 3 weeks. They came into the game with 5 sacks on the season. I can't say it without laughing. They're now tied for the league lead among all 32 teams with 16 sacks after getting to Daniel Jones 11 times. Credit to Jones. The guy's tough. He gets back up. He plays through being banged up, but 11 sacks? Fucking kidding me? It's out of control. Teron Armstead's out for Miami. I get that, and that doesn't help him. But here's the difference. The best pass catchers for the Giants right now, Wan'Dale Robinson. I actually like him going forward. I might hit some props if they open up later in the week. I'm recording this on a Wednesday. Like Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. Darren Waller's been a ghost. Saquon Barkley might play, but we don't know yet. On the other side, yeah, even if the Giants, who blitz at the second highest rate in the league, and there's no Teron Armstead for the Miami Dolphins, even if they bring a lot of pressure, Tua Tagovailoa gets the ball out quicker than anyone in the league not named Joe Burrow. And the only reason Burrow is getting the ball out quick is because he's not healthy and he's throwing 2 yards downfield, right? You have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and then don't forget, Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane now, not Achane, are monsters after the catch, and they're both super fast. Like, they got weapons. He has 6 touchdowns to 1 interception when he's getting the ball out under 2.5 seconds this year. So even I don't see how they don't rack up the points. Now, the public obviously on the Dolphins here, it makes sense. Embarrassing Monday Night Football loss for Daniel Jones. He's now 0-7 in primetime for his career. But Miami let's not forget about this. Miami's also coming off a bad loss, right? They're coming off a bad loss to a divisional opponent. I like Miami minus 10.5 here, but I'd rather go over 49.5. And here's why. I think Miami could score 40 and the Giants could score 10 and we get over, or the Giants are able to put up some points and they bounce back from a pitiful showing on Monday and you end up getting like a 30-20 game. I do like the over here because I think you can hit this on multiple levels, but I'd go Dolphins minus 10.5 because I don't know how you can protect Daniel Jones at this point, and he doesn't have the weapons to combat that unless he runs wild. You probably look towards over on rushing props for Jones in this spot as well, but over 49.5 points looks pretty juicy as well. Panthers 9.5 point dogs at the Lions, 44.5 point total. This game is mostly a stay away from me. I'd lean Lions minus 9.5 because Bryce Young has looked just bad. All right. He has not looked good. The Detroit Lions, I'm not saying the jury is still out on them because it's not. I think we can agree they're legitimately a good football team now. Like, they're a good football team. We liked them on Thursday night against the Packers. They smoked them, right? But how good are they? Right? Like, how good are the Giants, are the Lions a team that should be laying 9.5, 10 points, right? I think the answer is probably yes, but this is such an uncomfortable spot because everything in me wants to take Carolina 9.5 point dogs against the Lions. And maybe that's just what we've seen in the past. When's the last time we've seen the Lions as 9.5 point dogs, right? It's like, it feels like uncharted territory here, but the defense is vastly improved from where they were. Miles Sanders stinks behind this line. This isn't the Eagles anymore. They can't get anything going on the ground. They've been gutted at times on the ground defensively. David Montgomery's healthy now. You get Jameson Williams back for whatever that's worth, but it's a good football team. I probably pass here, but if you're looking to bet this game and you're looking for my opinion, my lean would be Lions minus 9.5. You get a 10-point win here at home in a dome where Jared Goff has been so good. It does make sense. Ravens and Steelers, 38.5 point total. Steelers getting 4 at home. All right, let's get weird. Let's get uncomfortable, and let's make all of you guys hate me. I think the Steelers are probably the value pick here. They're coming off just an embarrassing loss to Houston. For what it's worth, the Texans smoked the Jags, then beat up on the Steelers. I mean, it'll get even weirder when I back whoever, the Falcons later in this video against Houston. But if there's one thing we know about Mike Tomlin, it's betting against him as an underdog is usually not the best idea. And I know this is a different team. I know that. We also have to pay attention to Kenny Pickett and that injury. But at home, coming off an embarrassing loss, they got smoked as a dog, to be fair, in week 1 against San Francisco. But they beat the Browns outright at home. We were on Pittsburgh, money line in that game, right? And got a little bit of pushback from that. Rightfully so, probably. But they beat the Browns outright as a dog in week 2. And now they're coming off another bad loss at Houston. They're at home. They're 4-point dogs in a huge divisional spot. If Kenny Pickett plays, not to say he's been great, I would take the Steelers +4. Lose by a field goal, fine. I'm not taking the money line here, but Mike Tomlin as a dog in a divisional spot, I really don't mind the Steelers +4 if I'm hitting this game. Oh, look at that. Texans. I had no idea they were the next game up. Texans 1.5 point dogs against the Falcons, 41 point total. Let me actually see if there are any other spots that differ here. Looking at oddshopper.com right now. We just source everything and give you the best plus ROI bets. Links in the description if you guys want to check that out as well. It is fantastic. Like, if you bet player props, you should 100% be using oddshopper.com. Even if you just wanted to go in and see the odds for every single sports book on every game right there and find where the best lines and odds are, we got you covered. So I threw that's down there as well. I'd love to have you check this site out. I think you guys will really enjoy it. We made a ton of improvements lately. But yeah, all right. So there's still 1.5s out there. There's some 2.5s out there too. Look, this makes sense to me. When this was -1, I was looking at Falcons for sure. I'm still looking at them here. And most people, my guess is the public is absolutely going to be on Houston this week. The Falcons are coming off 2 ugly losses. They played from behind in both of them. But it feels like a come down to earth spot for the Texans for me. Think about this for a second. Just entertain the notion that I'm about to present you. If you disagree, that's great. Fade it. No big deal. I don't take it personally, guys. 2 straight wins for Houston. Impressive, definitive wins. 2 bad losses for Atlanta. One of them in London, whatever. But I'm not buying into this Texans run defense yet. And remember when we backed Houston or Atlanta in weeks 1 and 2, what were we talking about? We were talking about Atlanta can control the game on the ground when they can't, because remember, we've gone against Atlanta in each of the last 2 games. So we've actually had a good read on the Falcons this year. We're 4-0 betting we're betting Falcons games. The thing about this is this Texans defense, I still think they're truly bad. Okay. Run defense specifically. Derek Stingley's out too. He's on the IR, but the run defense. Bijan Robinson is really, really, really good. And I think he's going to continue to take a more commanding lead in this backfield. Arthur Smith is great at, ripping defeat from the jaws of victory, but just command the game on the ground. Don't ask Desmond Ridder to do too much because that guy stinks. As long as they don't start the game down multiple scores, and I think they can prevent that at home here in Atlanta, I think they can control the clock on the ground and win. This is one of those typical NFL. If you've bet the NFL long enough, you guys are you're nodding your heads in agreement right now. Like, yeah, I know these type of games. Houston looking really good 2 games, but are they really as good as they've looked? Is Atlanta actually as bad in this matchup as they've looked? I'm going to say no to both of those and lay the 1.5 with the Falcons. Saints and Patriots. Okay, so the Saints are -1. I'm on OddsShopper again looking at this one. This really stood out to me. They're -1 in some spots, and then they are +1 in some spots. So I assume eventually we'll see some type of consensus across most of these books. But you're still getting Saints are -1 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, on Bet365, they're +1. This is tough because, and I might actually look towards some Chris Olave props. Again, I'm recording this on Wednesday, so keep that in mind. But might look to some Chris Olave props here. This is a Patriots team that is dealing with some injuries right now. Jonathan Jones might not play again, and they just lost. So Jonathan Jones could be out of this one. But then they lost Christian Gonzalez, who's not expected to play for a little bit here either. 2 starting cornerbacks, that could be a problem in a spot like this against the Saints. Now, Derek Carr looked terrible last week, just awful. 13 receptions for Alvin Kamara, 33 yards. Tell me, when's the last time you've seen that? Because I doubt it's happened. But they looked horrible. I think that AC joint, look, I'm no doctor, but I've had this injury twice, and I was pretty good in 2 weeks. I didn't have the medical care or the attention or the rehabilitation that these guys have either. I think if he played last week, I think Carr without setbacks will be fine this week. It's a really weird spot, though, because the Patriots at home, in some spots as 1-point dogs. You get the money line probably around -105 here. I think they're a fine play. If you're betting this game, make sure you're on multiple books because you're going to want to get the best odds. Even if they don't seem significant, they are. You could basically just take either team to win at -1, depending on what book you're at. I think in a spot like this, I would lean Saints -1. And the reason I would do so, I'm actually changing this up on Jacob as we go. So my apologies, dude. I think I put that in wrong. The reason I would do that is because their defense is still good, even though last week looked bad against Tampa. I think the obvious play is just take the Patriots at home. I think I go Saints here because they have more weapons. I think Derek Carr will be healthy, and those 2 missing quarterbacks for the Patriots could give them some issues. I don't love this game at all. I can tell you that much. But if you're grabbing it, you want to grab Saints +1 because you can get that on certain books. If you want the Patriots, you grab them +1 on DraftKings. But that's just the way I would play this. Lean towards the Saints, but not a favorite spot. Now, if you want to talk about a game that is just going to make your head spin, I can tell you what it is, and it is the Eagles and the Rams. It's a pretty heavy fade for me right now across all fronts, okay? The Rams could have Cooper Kupp back. They activated that 21-day practice window, which would give them Puka Nacua. It would give them Cooper Kupp. Tyler Higbee coming off an 11-target game, and the teams like to pepper the middle of the field against the Eagles. Matthew Stafford dealing with that injury, but it seems like it's fine. This doesn't seem like something last year with the elbow, the tendonitis that just lingers. But then the Eagles on the other side, I think they can get a lot of pressure in this game. I think most people are kind of down on them right now. This opened at 5.5. It moved down to 4. Look, I'd lean Rams +4, but we have no idea if Kupp's going to play. There's a lot of question marks here. We got 13 games aside from this. This is a heavy pass for me right now. if, metaphorical gun to the head, Rams +4, but this is a pass. Titans are 1-point favorites on the road against the Colts, 42.5-point total here. This is the type of game that I look at and I go, people are overreacting to the Titans last week, and people are probably not giving the Colts the respect that they deserve. Not saying the Colts are world beaters by any stretch, but what would this line be if this was week 4 and the Colts were coming off that win against Baltimore and the Titans were coming off that disastrous loss to the Cleveland Browns where Brian Tannehill passed for 13 yards in the second half, right? Just think about that. Would you look at this? Ask yourself, would you look at this game differently? If the answer is no, that's good. The Titans are kind of bipolar in that respect, though, from week to week, and the Colts are a good, well-coached team. Anthony Richardson, very mobile. I don't know if Jonathan Taylor is going to be back this week. I'd say no. But the Colts money line here at even money just seems like the best spot to me, because I think this is as evenly matched a game as you could get. All right. As evenly as matched a game as you could get. If that's going to be the case and I can get the Colts money line at home at even money, I'll take it. Because like I said, we were on the Titans last week after that loss to the Browns. To be fair, we were on the Titans against the Browns too, but you get my point. We didn't overreact. And then with the Colts, we don't overreact. We were on the Rams last week. We get that money line win. We'll take it. This week, we'll go Colts money line, and we'll keep it at that. And for those of you guys that missed the beginning of this, skipping over the Thursday night game because it's after Thursday, quick reminder, if you're in the beautiful states, who do I sound like? It's a great state. I love these states. Colorado, Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, Iowa, or New Jersey, Bet365 is giving you $365 when you bet $1. Link in the description and in the chat, the pin comment. Deposit 10. It takes 2 minutes to sign up. So realistically, you're making $365 in 2 minutes. Say 3 if you want to be conservative. Bet $1 after you deposit 10. You're only betting $1. 10% of that $10. Make a massive parlay play, because if you hit it, you're going to be in business. Nobody wants to put a minus 110 on a $1 bet. Win or lose, you're getting $365 on the other side, fellas. If you're in those 6 states, jump on. Link in the description and the pinned comments. How about the Bengals at -3 against the Cardinals? 44.5-point total. It's fair to say, I think, that the Cardinals have played competitive football this season, and Dobbs hasn't even been bad. Joshua Dobbs hasn't been that bad. Took him 8 years to get his jersey, but it hasn't been bad. T. Higgins might not play. He said he won't miss a lot of time, and he might not miss this week. My guess is that T. Higgins won't play. Joe Burrow, listen to this. Joe Burrow is the first quarterback in history over his first first in history for a quarterback to throw 150 plus passes over the first 4 games of a season and have a yards per attempt average under 5. That's how bad it's been for Joe Burrow. This is the way I see it, okay? Maybe he just completely is fine. Maybe he's completely fine 1 more week and he's good. Or he's not. They're 3-point road favorites. And you know what? The Cardinals aren't good. You look at that roster and you go, who? What's going on? But at the same time, they're 3-point favorites on the road. If this is me, it's Cardinals or pass. Cardinals at +3 at field goal or pass. I can't back the only win that the Bengals had was at home against the Rams, and it wasn't because of the offense. They scored 19 points. It was because the defense continuously got to Matthew Stafford in that game and made life really difficult for him. Guys, you don't have to back this. You don't have to play this game, but I'm not sure how we're backing the Cincinnati Bengals right now, especially taking another pass catcher off and T. Higgins potentially. It's just been a really ugly season for them thus far. And until we see a turnaround, I'm staying away, or I'm taking the 3 points with the Cardinals. Chiefs are laying 5.5 against the Vikings, 53-point total. Hey, the Chiefs exploded against the Bears, but the other 3 games that we've seen this season out of the Chiefs, they've been, as far as offense goes, because the defense has certainly played well, been underwhelming, right? 23 points against the Jets. Jets and Zach Wilson made a legitimate comeback effort there. It looked dicey for a second for Patrick Mahomes and company. He also got picked off more than once as well. Jacksonville, they scored 17 points, just held the Jags to 9. And Detroit, 20 points. thank Kadarius Toney there for sure, but it's been a bit of a struggle. And we haven't really seen that breakout against a decent team. I'm not saying the Vikings defense is great, but they certainly look better last week. Bryce Young will make that, will help you out there. But you know what? Think about this for a second. Vikings are 1-3. They're at home. Are we just assuming they're going to lay down here? This is kind of reminiscent to me of that game last year in Buffalo. Remember Vikings in Buffalo? Vikings won that in overtime, and everyone just kind of expected Buffalo to run over them. And I'm not somebody to lay a lot of points on the Vikings because they'll find ways to shoot themselves in the foot. But getting 5.5 at home in like such a massive game, I'll take the 5.5 with the Vikings. I will take the 5.5. I'll also take the under here. I think you could see a real 27-24 type game. Vikings lose, Vikings win by 3, lose by 3, whatever. But 5.5 points, I still think there's a bit of an overreaction to how bad the Vikings have been this year. I don't think they've been as bad as their schedule might dictate. Jets, 2-point dogs at the Broncos. God, what a matchup this is. 43-point total. Is Zach Wilson not terrible anymore? I mean, I'm joking, kind of. Like, it's one game. But he made some really good plays in that game, particularly that scramble into the end zone. Targeted Garrett Wilson 14 times. Good job. That's what you should be doing. And guys, the Broncos are allowing 5.6 yards per attempt on the ground this year. That's 31st in the league. What happened to this defense? They're allowing 8.9 yards per attempt through the air, 32nd in football, dead last. Breece Hall's no longer on a snap count, according to Robert Saleh for the Jets. You may open him up this week. I kind of love this spot for Breece Hall. I can't wait till we get some props and see what we're looking at here because Dalvin Cook has been no revelation in that backfield at all. Breece Hall's explosive, man. Get him in a good spot and let him rip. This is actually in this game, in this same stadium is where he tore his ACL last year, but maybe he won some vengeance. I'm kidding. I like the Jets over 20.5 points. It's minus 108 on DraftKings. By far the best spot is on DraftKings. Maybe this is a donkey play for me. Maybe this is a square play. Me being like, yeah, I saw what the Jets did last week. Let's go over 20.5 points. But I think at the same time, I could still make a pretty good argument that this is such a bad Broncos defense and that Zach Wilson and company showed us at least a little bit of life last week against a far superior Chiefs defense that in this spot, even though, it's in altitude, it's in Denver, I think over 20.5 points is a legitimate spot to get to here. I'm not betting the Jets to win this game because at the end of the day, it's still the Jets. But I do like over 20.5 points. I think that's a good number. If it's 21.5 points, keep me away. But 20.5, I think there's still a little value there for sure. Cowboys and the Niners. All right, we got ourselves a hell of a marquee matchup for Sunday Night Football, right? And I'll tell you what, I know people love to bet the Cowboys. That's always the prevailing logic. Is like the public always bets the Cowboys. I'll bet you more of the public is on the Niners this week. I bet you they are. And I get it too. I mean, they're just a dominant football team. I wouldn't blame you for wanting to take this position. You can listen to what I have to say though. That'd be cool. You want to go against it? That's cool too. But think about this for a second. Like they've faced outright dog shit football teams this year. Arizona, New York, Giants, Pittsburgh. By the way, like we're on Arizona leaning them and Pittsburgh. But that's all week to week stuff. Those teams aren't actually good. It's all situational. It's all week to week. It's matchup. It's what happened last week. What happened? All that stuff. They faced the Rams. Fine. Rams are a pretty decent football team right now, but you get my point. The Cowboys lost to the Cardinals too by 12. So how many people are going to be like, well, I saw what the Niners did to the Cardinals, and I saw what the Cardinals did to the Cowboys. And I've seen that the Niners are dropping 30-plus points every week, right? I just think this is this is the type of matchup that both teams get up for. Both teams get up for this matchup. And the Cowboys are getting more than a field goal. They're getting 3.5. I know that they have an inferior offense to the Niners, but I'm just looking at this type of spot. And Micah Parsons looks like he's going to be fine, by the way. I think the 3.5 is a good spot. Just Sunday Night Football, two teams that many people talk about could be, NFC championship game. Give me the Cowboys at plus 3.5 here, man. I get it. Public, a lot of you guys are going to like the Niners. I know I'll see it in comments, and I welcome it. But I like the Cowboys, 3.5 point dogs on the road. We rounded out with the Packers and the Raiders. You guys tell me, please, in the comments, am I crazy here? The Packers at -2.5. They're actually getting public money out of the gate, 44.5 point total. I don't think Jair Alexander is going to play. First of all, Matt LaFleur didn't sound particularly optimistic when he talked about this. He was saying, like, you know how back injuries are. We hope to have him back soon, but didn't say anything about this week. Jair Alexander's out. That could be a problem against Devontae Adams, okay? I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play, but, you know, Aiden McConnell, outside of getting sacked a ton last week, really wasn't that bad. And I loved it late in the game when they needed points. He peppered Devontae Adams. Get him the ball. Hell, make this a two-man offense at this point between Josh Jacobs and Adams, and give Jacoby Myers a little bit along the way. But the Packers' run defense is bad. It's not good at all. I think Jacobs can run well in this game. And Jordan Love, okay, I know you can look at some of the like superfluous numbers here and like stat padding numbers and go, man, he's a lot of touchdowns, this and that, you know, come from behind game against Saints. But he has the worst adjusted completion percentage in the league among all starters and the worst completion percentage under pressure. Max Crosby can get pressure. This team can get pressure. I'm taking the Raiders as 2.5 point dogs. If you can find 3 out there, more power to you. But I think that the Raiders could be in a spot, even if it's Aiden O'Connell. But if that's the case, maybe you want to wait on this game, because if it's O'Connell, this might even move further and you get that 3.5. So we got into, we usually we want to get spots early and get good closing line value. This is probably a spot where I wait, but I think we could get legitimate value on the Raiders. I'm not buying into the Packers. I'm not buying into their run defense. And their secondary is what is always strong and what bolsters that D. But if Alexander misses another game and you've got Devontae Adams on the other side, it could be a problem. We'll cover this more on Monday when I break that game down Monday morning. But appreciate you guys watching. As always, follow me on the Twitters at Loughy_D. Have a great week, and we'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.